He was 10 years old when he watched his father kill his sister. For 10 years, he kept the secret. Until the day his mother almost became the next victim. Before we dive into what really happened on that family vacation, hit that like button and subscribe if stories like this pull you in. Drop a comment. Tell us where you're watching from. It's always incredible seeing how far these stories reach. The fluorescent lights of the hospital corridor flicker at this late hour. Or maybe it's just Rena Marlowe's exhaustion playing tricks on her. At 43, she feels a decade older. Signing off her charts at the nurse's station, 11-hour shift behind her. "See you tomorrow, Rena," calls a younger nurse. "Bright and early." Though there's nothing bright about starting her morning shift at the playgroup before returning to the hospital in the afternoon, bills don't pay themselves. Single-handedly supporting a family of 3, well, 2 now, requires sacrifices. The night air hits her face, a welcome coolness after the sterile hospital warmth. The bus is late, as usual, giving her mind unwelcome time to wander. 10 years. 10 years since her daughter Leia disappeared on that family vacation in Egypt. 10 years of searching, pleading, praying. 10 years of a husband slowly deteriorating, drowning his guilt in alcohol. 10 years of watching her son Tommy grow up with the shadow of his sister's absence hanging over him. By the time she reaches her stop, it's nearly 11 p.m. The darkened windows tell their own story. No one waited up for her. The front door creaks as she enters. Silence envelops her immediately. She moves quietly through the darkened living room, her nurse's training making her steps light. Pausing at Tommy's door, she gently pushes it open. At 20, he still sleeps curled slightly on his side, just as he had as a child. Upstairs in the master bedroom, Rena sets her nursing bag down. The empty bed doesn't surprise her. Rick is out again, undoubtedly at one of the local bars. She sighs deeply, weight of exhaustion settling into her bones. After a quick shower, Rena settles at the small desk, opens her laptop. The screen illuminates her tired face. She logs into her email, checking for any new messages from the various missing persons forums she's joined over the years. Most are spam, or well-intended but useless tips that lead nowhere. Still, she scrolls through them meticulously, as she does every night. Here's where it gets strange. As she conducts her nightly research, guilt gnaws at her core. A familiar, constant companion. If only she hadn't been working that day. If only she had joined them on that vacation from the beginning. Her second job as a playgroup teacher had been relatively new then. Taken on when Rick's military disability benefits were reduced, they needed the extra income. And she thought the vacation would be good for Rick. A chance to bond with the children away from his mounting depression. It will be therapeutic, his therapist had suggested. She was supposed to join them later that week, but an emergency at the hospital kept her. The irony wasn't lost on her. While she'd been saving strangers' lives in the ER, her own daughter had vanished without a trace. The sound of the front door opening pulls her from her thoughts. Heavy footsteps make their uneven way up the stairs. Rick appears in the doorway, his once handsome face bloated from years of drinking. The smell of stale beer and cigarettes clings to him. "Still at it," he slurs, gesturing toward the laptop. "Don't you ever give up?" Rena closes the screen partially, already bracing herself. "You're drunk again." "So what if I am?" Rick leans against the doorframe, balance uncertain. "You left Tommy alone," she says, voice tight with contained anger. Rick scoffs. "He's 20, for Christ's sake, not a child." "No one likes to be alone, Rick." Rena stands, fatigue momentarily forgotten. "You're not working? The least you could do while I spend all my energy earning money is spend quality time with your son, rather than wasting my hard-earned money on alcohol." Here we go again, the martyr speech. "If you had saved all the money you've spent on beer over the years, I could probably afford to go to Egypt. Search for Leia myself." Rick's expression darkens. It's been 10 years, Rena. 10 years. You won't find her even if you went there. You were probably drunk that evening too, weren't you? When Laya disappeared? It was your fault. You were there with her. You didn't keep an eye on her. Rick's face contorts with anger. Don't you dare blame me. That girl just left the hotel and never came back. The argument escalates rapidly, both hurling accusations fueled by a decade of unresolved grief. Rena feels her control slipping, the careful facade she maintains crumbling. I'm done with this, she finally says. I'm sleeping downstairs tonight. But as she tries to pass him, Rick grabs her arm, his grip painfully tight. Don't you walk away from me, he growls, eyes narrowed. You will show me some respect. Let go of me. You don't deserve any respect for being a drunkard. I'm an ex-military man, Rick shouts, pushing her back against the wall with enough force to knock the breath from her lungs. He raises his hand. Rena flinches, preparing for the blow, but it never comes. A sound from the hallway makes them both freeze. Tommy stands in the doorway, his tall frame silhouetted against dim light, witnessing the entire confrontation. The moment stretches between them, taut with unspoken tension. Then Rick releases her, storms into the bedroom, slams the door. The distinct click of the lock follows. This part still gives me chills. Rena wakes to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains. For a moment, she's disoriented, then recognizes Tommy's bedroom. She reaches for her phone, feels her heart drop. 10 a.m. She completely missed her morning shift at the playgroup. No, she mutters, sitting up too quickly, feeling dizzy. 3 missed calls. A message from the school principal asking why she hadn't shown up. Panic seizes her. The playgroup class runs from 8:00 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. She missed it entirely. She quickly types a reply, promising to come explain in person. After catching the principal before he leaves, receiving a warning about managing her schedule better, Rena decides to surprise Tommy with lunch. She has several hours before her 2 p.m. hospital shift, an unexpected pocket of free time. Walking to the market to pick up ingredients, Rena decides to cut through a series of alleyways, a shortcut. The narrow passages are nearly empty in late morning, buildings on either side casting cool shadows. She's halfway through when movement ahead catches her attention. From a distance, she sees a young man. Bright yellow shoes, black hoodie, talking with a blonde woman wearing minimal clothing. 2 men in black sunglasses and leather jackets stand nearby. Rena slows her pace. Something about the young man's posture striking her as familiar. She can't see his face, but something about those yellow shoes tugs at her memory. The exchange looks like some kind of transaction, money or small packages changing hands. Suddenly, one of the men in leather jackets notices her watching. He nudges his companion. Both turn to stare. "What are you looking at, lady?" one shouts, tone unmistakably threatening. Rena immediately turns around, heart racing, quickens her steps back toward the main street. Those yellow shoes keep nagging at her mind. Where has she seen them before? Nobody saw this coming. Back home, Rena heads upstairs to the master bedroom, opening the windows to air out the lingering smell of alcohol. The room needs thorough cleaning. She decides to start by changing the bedding. As she pushes against the heavy mattress, straining with effort, she places one leg on the underbed for leverage. That's when she notices something odd. A section in the middle of the underbed looks different. What appears to be a seam, where material has been cut and sewn back together. "What in the world?" she murmurs, running her fingers along the uneven stitching. Curiosity overcomes her. She retrieves scissors from her sewing kit, carefully cuts along the line of stitches, pulls back the fabric to reveal cotton stuffing inside. As she digs through the fluffy material, Her fingers brush against something smooth and flat. Photographs. With trembling hands, she extracts them one by one. Photos from the family vacation in Egypt 10 years ago. The trip from which Laya never returned. One photograph catches her attention. Rick crouched on one knee on a sandy beach. Tommy on his right. Laya on his left. Both children smiling. Rena turns the photo over. Feels her breath catch. Written on the back is what appears to be a set of coordinates. She looks through the other photos. Various tourist sites around Egypt. On the back of a photo taken in the desert, what looks like a phone number, not U.S. format. Likely Egyptian. Her heart pounding, Rena documents the hiding place with her phone. Takes pictures of the damaged underbed. Then, she hastily changes the bed cover. Pushes the heavy bed back into position. Taking the photographs to the desk, Rena's mind races with questions. Why had Rick hidden these photos? What significance do these coordinates and phone number hold? She picks up her phone. Calls Detective Mercer, who handled Laya's case. The call goes straight to voicemail. She checks her messages. Sees Tommy has finally replied about lunch, saying he'll wait for her at the supermarket in an hour. Rena quickly texts back. Something's come up. I found a clue. I'll see you there and tell you about it later. Turning to her laptop, Rena types the coordinates into a search engine. The result shows a location in the center of Gifton Island, off the coast of Hurghada, Egypt. She compares the sandy beach in the photo to images of Gifton Island beaches online. They match perfectly. Why would he mark this specific location? She whispers. Was this just to remember where the photo was taken? Or is this where Laya is? The thought sends a chill down her spine. She looks at the phone number, debating whether to call. Curiosity wins out. With shaking fingers, she dials the international number. The line rings 3 times before a man answers. The voice speaks in heavily accented English. Yes, who is this? Panic seizes Rena. She immediately ends the call, nearly dropping her phone. She searches the number online, finds no relevant information. What are you hiding, Rick? She mutters. With Detective Mercer not answering, Rena decides she needs to take these photos to the police station herself. She carefully gathers them, places them in her handbag, heads downstairs. And here's the detail that changes everything. Rena walks briskly toward the police station, the weight of the photographs in her bag feeling much heavier than their physical presence. About 15 minutes into her journey, she passes the Rusty Anchor, a bar she knows Rick frequents. As if conjured by her thoughts, the door swings open. Rick himself emerges, face twisted in agitation. He stops short when he sees her. Genuine surprise registering in his bloodshot eyes. Rena, what are you doing here? He glances around suspiciously. Thought you'd be at home getting ready for work. Rena's mouth goes dry. She hasn't prepared for this confrontation. Not here. Not now. Her hand instinctively tightens on her bag, acutely aware of its incriminating contents. I'm going to visit Tommy. We're planning to have lunch together. Rick narrows his eyes, studying her face. Oh yeah? You sure about that? There's something unsettling in his tone, a dangerous undercurrent. Yes, she says, trying to keep her voice steady. I didn't get a chance to talk to Tommy this morning. Rick nods slowly, expression unreadable. I was just on my way home. Why don't we have lunch together instead, just the 2 of us? I can't. Not after what happened last night. I promised Tommy. Before she can finish, Rick's hand shoots out, gripping her arm with painful intensity. Tommy will understand, he says, voice low and controlled. Come with me, Rena. There's no request in his words, only command. Rena feels panic flutter as Rick begins guiding her back toward their house, his grip unyielding. She considers calling out. But what would she say? That her husband wants her to come home? It would sound ridiculous. As they reach the house, Rick unlocks the door, practically pushes her inside, then secures the deadbolt behind them. Rick, what is this about? Why did you lock the door? I need to meet Tommy. Instead of answering, Rick advances toward her. Deliberate steps. In one fluid motion, he yanks her handbag from her shoulder, empties its contents onto the floor. Items scatter across the hardwood: wallet, keys, phone, and the damning photographs. Time seems to slow as Rick bends down, retrieves the photos. His movements almost casual. He straightens, flips through them with eerie calmness, then breaks into a hollow laugh. Seems like you found this, he says, voice unnervingly soft. What about those photos? Rena asks, backing away from him. I found them in the underbed, Rick finishes for her, eyes never leaving the photographs. I know, I put them there. Rena continues backing away until she hits the wall. How do you know? And what's that coordinate? What's the phone number? Rick's smile sends a chill through her. I think you've already figured it out, haven't you? Gifton Island. You always were thorough with your research. He holds up the photos. Someone I trusted on that island contacted me just now, said a U.S. number called him. When he sent me the number, it was yours, Rena. His eyes flicker to her phone on the floor. That's how I know you found the photos. And I'm guessing you were on your way to the police station, not to see Tommy. Rena's heart hammers against her ribs. What about that coordinate? Why hide the photos? What happened to Laya? Instead of answering, Rick's hand shoots out, wraps around her throat. Rena's eyes widen in shock as his fingers tighten, cutting off her air supply. She claws at his hand, gasping for breath. Please, she chokes out. I'm your wife. We still have a son. Rick's expression remains cold, unmoved by her pleas. Rena's vision begins to blur at the edges, lungs screaming for oxygen. Suddenly, her phone on the floor begins to ring, its cheerful tone incongruously bright in the grim moment. Rena struggles to speak, words barely audible. It must be Tommy. I promised lunch. The persistent ringtone seems to agitate Rick. His eyes dart to the phone, grip on Rena's throat momentarily loosening. Then, without warning, his face contorts. He releases her entirely, stumbling backward with hands pressed against his ears. Rena collapses to her knees, coughing, gulping air. She crawls toward her phone, but Rick recovers quickly. He lunges forward, snatches the phone just as she reaches for it, jabs the end call button. No police, he growls, breathing ragged. No Tommy, no one. Before Rena can react, Rick grabs her by the hair, drags her to the garage. From a drawer, he produces a zip tie, binds her wrists, uses a shop rag to gag her. With surprising strength, he shoves her into the back seat of their old car. I won't let you give that photo to the police, he mutters, slamming the door. This is where it gets dark. The drive is a disorienting blur. Eventually, Rick turns down a side street, parks behind a shabby-looking building. A neon sign reads, "The Last Call." The name sends a chill through Rena. This isn't one of Rick's usual haunts. She'd made it her business to know those places, had even visited some to bring him home. This place is unknown territory. Rick cuts the engine, the sudden silence pressing against Rena's ears. He turns in his seat, studying her with detached interest, as if she were a problem to be solved rather than his wife of 20 years. We're going inside. If you try to signal anyone or make any noise, I'll tell them you're having a psychotic episode. Who do you think they'll believe? A decorated veteran or the overworked wife who's been obsessing over a decade-old disappearance? The casual cruelty steals what little fight remains in Rena. Rick guides her through a back entrance, his grip painful on her bound arms. The interior is dimly lit, stale smell of cigarettes and cheap liquor hanging in the air. Despite the early hour, several men sit at a worn bar. Others lounge in booths along the wall. They barely look up as Rick enters with his bound wife. A tall man with a shaved head and multiple tattoos crossing his neck approaches. He wears an expensive watch that seems at odds with the dingy surroundings. "Rick," he acknowledges with a nod, eyes assessing Rena coldly. "This is her." "I've had enough of this woman," Rick declares, pushing Rena forward slightly. "Deal with her quick, no mess." Rena's eyes widen as understanding crashes over her. This isn't just about preventing her from going to the police. Rick intends for her to disappear permanently. She tries to scream through the gag. The sound emerges as a muffled whimper. The tattooed man takes hold of her arm, his grip surprisingly gentle compared to Rick's bruising force. "Take her to the back," calls a heavy-set man from behind the bar. As the tattooed man guides her away, Rena twists her head back. Desperate for one last look at Rick, she sees another man approach him, leaning in close. "You want the usual girl?" Rick's response floats, clearly across the room. Voice lighter now. "Yes, with something to take my mind off all this." He reaches into his jacket, produces a thick envelope, hands it to the bartender. The man peers inside, whistles low, tucks it beneath the counter. "What a good use of your wife's money," the man laughs. "You sure you want to get rid of her? You're losing your ATM?" "Don't ask, just do it," Rick snaps. "Would you have done the same?" The tattooed man guides Rena down a narrow hallway to a small windowless room. Contains only a metal chair and a cabinet. He pushes her into the chair, secures her legs with more zip ties. Despite her terror, Rena studies his face carefully, determined that if by some miracle she survives, she'll be able to identify him. As he straightens to full height, recognition strikes her. This is one of the men in leather jackets she saw earlier that day, in the alley. But who was the man wearing the bright yellow shoes? Once she's securely bound, the man looks directly into her eyes for the first time. What she sees there confuses her. Not the cold detachment of a killer for hire, but something softer, almost apologetic. His expression changes, hardness melting from his features. He presses a finger to his lips. Universal gesture for silence. From his pocket he withdraws a smartphone. Screen cracked at one corner. After tapping the screen several times, he turns it to show her. On the display is a banking app, showing a transaction record, an amount that makes Rena's eyes widen. Easily 5 figures, more money than she could save in a year of double shifts. But it's the name on the transaction that truly steals her breath. Tommy Marlowe, her son. He had paid this man. The pieces start falling into place, forming a picture she doesn't want to believe. The bright yellow shoes. Of course, they were Tommy's. That's why they felt so familiar. As the realization settles over her, Rena feels tears welling. Not for herself, but for her son. What had Rick done to drive Tommy to such desperate measures? The tattooed man switches off his phone, slides it back into his pocket. He moves to the cabinet against the wall, extracts a key from around his neck, unlocks the metal doors. Inside is an arsenal, handguns of various calibers, boxes of ammunition, what appears to be a disassembled rifle. The man selects a revolver, blue-black finish, absorbing what little light reaches it. With practiced movements, he opens the cylinder. Shows Rena it contains a single bullet. He spins the cylinder, metallic clicks echoing like a macabre countdown. "1 bullet," he says quietly. "For your husband, from Tommy." Rena shakes her head frantically, making muffled sounds of protest behind her gag. Her eyes plead, "Don't do this. Not in my son's name." Before the man can respond, the door opens. Tommy stands in the doorway, his tall frame filling the space. He wears jeans and a hoodie. And on his feet, the bright yellow shoes. "Mom," he breathes, voice cracking on the single syllable. He rushes to her side, drops to his knees beside the chair, his fingers trembling slightly, was to work at the knot of the gag. The cloth falls away. "I'm so sorry they had to restrain you like this," Tommy says, not meeting her eyes. "It's just to make sure you wouldn't fight back and ruin the plan. I didn't want that, but Jerome insisted it was necessary." The tattooed man, Jerome, gives a slight nod. "I'm also sorry for what I'm about to do," Tommy continues, voice dropping to a whisper. "But I can't let him hurt you again. If he brought you here, that means only one thing. He wanted to get rid of you permanently." As blood rushes painfully back into her freed hands, Rena grabs Tommy's arm. "No, Tommy, listen to me. If the police find out about this, they'll put you in prison. You can't do this." Tommy's face hardens. "I don't care. After everything Dad did, I just want him gone." "What do you mean? Tommy, what are you talking about?" "The truth is too painful, Mom." Jerome steps forward. "Your dad's upstairs with that woman. Now's the right time if we're going to do this." Tommy nods, rising to his feet, reaches for the gun in Jerome's hand. In that moment, time seems to slow. Rena sees her son, her beautiful, sensitive boy who once refused to step on ants, reaching for a weapon with intention of becoming a killer. The realization galvanizes her. Moving faster than either man anticipates, Rena lunges toward Tommy. Her fingers close around his phone, protruding slightly from his hoodie pocket. "Mom, what?" Tommy begins. But Rena has already pressed the SOS button, the one they configured years ago after Leia's disappearance, a feature that automatically dials 911. "No!" Tommy shouts, trying to grab the phone back. The device begins its connection sequence. A female voice announcing, "Emergency services have been contacted." Jerome curses loudly. Deal's off. "I don't do murder with cops on the way." He gestures to someone outside. Within seconds, he and his men are rushing out of the building. Tommy stares at Rena, expression a mixture of anger and devastation. "Why did you do that?" He was going to pay. "I wanted to end this." Rena holds her son's face between her hands. "I can't let you become a criminal, Tommy. I've already lost one child. I can't lose you, too." Tommy's eyes well with tears, tough facade crumbling to reveal the wounded boy beneath. "But as long as he's alive, we'll never be safe. You'll never be safe." "Listen to me," Rena says urgently, hearing sirens in the distance. "This stays between us. We tell the police we caught your father here using drugs. I'll show them the evidence I found. You'll tell them everything that happened in Egypt. But you never paid anyone to harm your father. Do you understand me?" Tommy hesitates, conflict evident in his eyes. "They won't talk," Rena says with more confidence than she feels. "They're long gone. And who would believe Rick over us?" Tommy nods slowly, looking suddenly young and vulnerable. "Okay. Some questions don't have answers, only echoes." Police cars screech to a halt outside, lights casting red and blue shadows through cracks in boarded-up windows. "Remember," Rena whispers, "you were trying to save me. Nothing more." They step outside just as officers emerge, weapons drawn. "My husband is inside," Rena calls out, raising her hands. "Upstairs. He brought me here against my will." Officers approach, one holstering his weapon to speak with them while others enter the building. "Ma'am, we received an emergency call from this location. Can you tell me what happened?" Rena nods, voice steady despite internal turmoil. "My name is Rena Marlowe. My husband, Rick Marlowe, abducted me from our home and brought me here. I believe he intended to have me killed. More officers emerge, escorting Rick and a scantily clad woman. Rick's face contorts with rage when he sees Rena and Tommy standing with police. "This is a setup," he shouts, struggling against the officer's grip. "They're lying." The officer interviewing Rena ignores Rick's outburst. "We'll need both of you to come to the station to give formal statements." Rena reaches into her pocket, produces the photographs. "Officer, I found these hidden in our home today. They're from our family vacation in Egypt 10 years ago, the trip where my daughter disappeared." The officer examines the photos, noting the coordinates and phone number. "We'll take these as evidence." Tommy steps forward. "I was there. I was 10 years old when my father murdered my sister. He's been threatening and abusing me ever since to keep me quiet." Without warning, Tommy lifts his shirt, revealing a pattern of old scars across his back. Evidence of systematic abuse. Rena gasps in horror. She'd never seen these marks before. "Oh, Tommy," she whispers, reaching for him. As Rick is placed in a police car, he locks eyes with Tommy. "You think you're smarter than me?" he calls out. "No, I'll make sure you end up behind bars too." His gaze shifts to Rena. "This is a war zone now, and I'll defeat all my enemies." He spats toward them before being forced into the car. The truth doesn't set you free. It just gives you something new to carry. At the police station, Detective Mercer joins Rena with a folder of notes. "Mrs. Marlowe, I apologize for missing your call earlier. Tell me everything that happened today." Rena recounts finding the photographs, the coordinates to Gifton Island, the phone number, Rick's violent reaction, his abduction of her, bringing her to the pub. "I believe he killed her based on what he implied, and Tommy's statement. I think Laya is buried somewhere on that island." Detective Mercer nods solemnly. "We'll coordinate with Egyptian authorities immediately." He pauses. "What I need to understand is how you ended up at that pub. And if your husband had paid those men to kill you, why hadn't they done so before we arrived?" Before Rena can respond carefully, there's a knock at the door. Another detective enters, expression serious. "Tommy Marlowe has confessed everything." Rena's hands fly to her mouth. "According to your son, he paid those men a higher price than his father. He asked them to kill Rick while he was with the woman, because he didn't want him to hurt you anymore." Tears stream down Rena's face. Tommy chose to tell the complete truth, not protecting himself as she'd instructed. "Tommy also told us what happened 10 years ago," the detective adds. "According to him, your husband had been abusing both children for years. On the day Laya disappeared, Rick had been drinking at a hotel bar. He returned to their room, took Laya with him. When he came back later that night, Laya was gone. He threatened Tommy, saying if he ever told anyone, he would hurt both Tommy and you." Detective Mercer's voice is gentle. "We'll coordinate with Egyptian authorities to find the man Rick paid. That person is likely the key to finding out what happened to Laya." "What about my son?" Rena asks. "What will happen to him?" "He'll be charged with conspiracy to commit murder," Detective Mercer says frankly. "But given the circumstances, the court might show leniency. The fact that he stopped short of actually committing the crime will work in his favor." Rena straightens, finding a new reserve of strength. "I've lived a bitter life for the past decade, but I'll plead with the judge for my son. He didn't go through with killing his father. He chose to be better despite everything he's endured." Detective Mercer nods. "That's fair. I hope justice will be served for all of you." Through a doorway, Rena sees Tommy being processed, hands cuffed in front of him. Their eyes meet across the room, hers filled with sorrow, his with a strange sort of peace, as if a terrible burden has finally been lifted. When booking is complete, an officer allows Rena a brief moment with her son. "I'm so sorry, Mom," Tommy says, voice barely above a whisper. Rena touches his face gently. "Thank you for saving my life. If you hadn't intervened, we'd all just be counting days until we ended up in the graves Rick had prepared for us. I couldn't let him hurt you anymore." "Listen to me," Rena says firmly. "You didn't kill your father. You're not a murderer. And whatever he or anyone else says against you in court, I will believe you and testify for you. We're going to get through this, Tommy. Together." As the officer leads Tommy away, Rena watches her son's straight back and raised head. Despite everything they've endured, Laya's disappearance, Rick's abuse, the crushing weight of secrets, they have survived. The truth, painful as it is, has finally come to light. For the first time in 10 years, Rena feels something she'd almost forgotten. Hope. Not the desperate hope of finding Laya alive, but the quiet, steady hope that justice will prevail, that evil will be punished, that she and Tommy might eventually find peace. Whatever lies ahead, trials, investigations, painful revelations, they'll face it together. The long night of secrecy and suffering is finally giving way to the first pale light of truth. Thanks for watching. If you felt this story, like, share, and subscribe for more untold mysteries every week. Tell us where you're watching from. Your city might get a shout out next time. Until then, stay curious and stay safe.